Okay, this video is going to demonstrate how to create a new virtual machine in VMware Workstation Pro. Basically, we need to go File, New, create a new one. Typical is going to pick some settings for you. If you need to do some advanced options, you can pick Custom. We'll do Typical this time. We need something to install, so normally an ISO image is what we will get to install the operating system. So if you're experienced person, you might remember back in the day you would stick a CD or DVD in the CD or DVD drive. CDs and DVDs are little flat round discs that can hold data. You also USB drives sometimes are used for that, and then you would boot the hardware, and then the operating system would load from that. So we're going to download. I'm going to do CentOS 7 because that's what we use in our Linux class. So we're going to download CentOS 7. I searched for CentOS 7 ISO, and this is what I came up with. It gives me some mirrors. I'm going to pick one of those, and I'm going to go with the minimal ISO because it'll be smaller and hopefully it'll be done quickly. So we got about 30 seconds left. So once this finishes downloading, we're going to pick that ISO and then move forward with the process of installing. Alright, so that's done. So I'm going to find the ISO. It should be in my downloads directory. Alright, next. Give it a name. I'm just going to leave the name saying where do you want to put it. If you're not changing where you're putting your files, then that's where you want to put it. How big do you want to make the disk? This can be challenging to know what you're going to deploy, and it depends on what you're using this for. It also depends on how much disk space is available to you on your host PC. So for testing, just messing around, I'm going to keep it at 20 gig. If you were doing something real, you would need to do some analysis of what you're going to install. If you're making a database server, how much data do you think it's going to hold? It gives you the option to put it in multiple disks or keep a single disk. So splitting the disk makes it easier to move the virtual machine to another computer, but may reduce performance with very large disks. I'm going to go with a single disk. Actually, I'll leave it as the default. That must be better. And then it shows what it's going to do. It gives you the option to customize hardware. I'm going to click on that. It's giving me 1 gig of memory. How much memory should you give it? Well, it depends on how much your system has and how much what the VM is going to be doing. Here's some options. You can select if you have like a CPU that supports these technologies. You could select that. I don't know if my CPU does, so I'm not. Network adapter. Part of our lab activity, we went through what the different network types were. And that will do network address translation. I generally do bridged on my stuff, so my VM can have direct access to the network. So I'm going to make those changes. And now I'm going to hit finish and see what happens. My guess is it's going to boot the ISO. Right? I don't want to install, so I need to click inside the window. I'm going to hit up arrow because I don't want to test the media. I just want to install CentOS 7. So it's going to boot the ISO, and then it's going to give me the options to go through the install process. Since I picked CentOS 7, this should look very much like what we saw in the Linux class once it comes up, because that's the same operating system we installed in the Linux class. So this should eventually get us up to the menu where we can make the changes we need to make for installing to set the stuff we need to set. Yeah, so this should look familiar to you. English. Pretty much, we don't really need to change a lot of this stuff. We need to make sure the disk, we go automatic partitioning. The network, So you can change the host name. You can set the network settings. Right now is probably set for DHCP, which is good. For my network, if you want to set a static IP, you can. One thing you can do is you can turn it on and see if it's going to work. So we turned it on, and it did get an IP address from DHCP, so that makes me feel good about what's going to happen once we finish the install. So I'm going to be done with that. I'm going to disable that because that uses memory. Don't really need that on. And then I'm going to begin install. I didn't set a root password, so I'm going to set a root password. Done. It wants to know if I want to create a user or not. Yeah, I'll create a user. All right. And I can go ahead and put myself in the wheel group, I think. All right, so that's that. Once it finishes, I will reboot, and then we'll have our CentOS 7 VM. All right, the install finished, and very annoyingly, the window here is not showing me the whole window, and I don't really know how to solve that problem. I know there's a button over here that says Reboot, but I can't really get to it. But sometimes you have to outsmart your systems. Up here, you can see the edge of a button. That's the Help button. So if you click on that, that opens Help. But another thing, you can use the Tab key to go between fields. So I can see the edge of the thing highlighting that button there for Help. So I'm going to hit Tab once, and it goes away. And if I hit Tab again, it comes back. So that tells me there's only two options on this page. So I'm going to hit Tab again, and I'm going to assume that's the Reboot button, and I'm going to hit Enter. So yeah, so I had to outsmart my system to reboot it. So working in technology, that's something that if you're good at, can help save you time. Because if I couldn't figure that out, I would probably be like, hey Siri, how do I get my VMware Workstation to show me all the buttons, and then spend like time trying to figure that out. So the system rebooted. I'm going to log in as root. I'm going to log in as root if I can remember what I set the password to. All right, so now I'm logged in at my CentOS minimal install. Remember, there's no graphical user interface installed when you go with the minimal install. So that's pretty much what we were doing to install.